The night was quiet, the streets empty, until a masked figure crept into a small office, eyes locked on an old, rusted safe. With shaky hands, he cracked it open, expecting cash, maybe valuables. But before he could react, a hidden mechanism inside sprayed him with bright yellow paint. Panic set in. His vision blurred, his clothes were drenched, and worst of all, he had no idea what just happened. Meanwhile, across town, Officer Daniels got the call, a break-in at a private office. When he arrived, he barely held back a laugh. The suspect, covered head to toe in neon yellow, looked more like a walking caution sign than a criminal. But as Daniels dug deeper, something felt off. That safe, it wasn't just any safe. It belonged to someone powerful. And the moment Daniels realized whose office had been hit, his stomach dropped. This was about to get a whole lot worse. Officer Daniels felt a chill run down his spine. The safe belonged to none other than Police Chief Warren, a man known for being strict, private, and not someone you wanted to cross. Daniels turned back to the suspect, who was still blinking in confusion, wiping the sticky yellow paint from his face. Whoever this guy was, he had no idea what kind of trouble he had just walked into. Daniels pulled out his radio, hesitating for a moment before calling it in. The break-in itself was bad enough, but the fact that it happened in the chief's personal office, that made it something else entirely. Why would someone target that safe? Did they even know who it belonged to? And more importantly, what was inside that was worth the risk. As backup arrived, Daniels glanced at the safe, its door hanging open. Whatever the thief had been after, it was already gone. Daniels stepped closer to the safe, his heartbeat steady but his mind racing. The thief, still dazed and dripping yellow, muttered under his breath, "It wasn't supposed to be empty." Daniels narrowed his eyes. Empty? That meant he had been looking for something specific. But what? And who tipped him off that it was there? Before he could ask, Chief Warren's car screeched to a stop outside. The moment he stepped in, the room tensed. Warren wasn't the kind of man who likes surprises, especially not ones involving his personal property. His sharp gaze locked onto the thief, then shifted to the open safe. He said nothing at first, just took a slow breath before turning to Daniels. "Where is it?" His voice was calm, but Daniels could hear the storm beneath it. Daniels glanced at the thief, who looked just as confused. Whatever had been in that safe, someone else had beaten them to it. The room felt heavier by the second. Chief Warren's eyes burned into Daniels, waiting for an answer. But what could he say? The safe was empty, the thief was clueless, and now they had an even bigger problem. Someone else had already been here. The chief took a step closer to the thief, his voice low but firm. "Who sent you?" The man hesitated, shifting uncomfortably in his stained clothes. He wasn't just scared, he was calculating. That was enough to tell Daniels one thing: this guy wasn't working alone. Before anyone could push further, a voice crackled over Daniels' radio. "We've got movement outside. Looks like someone's watching." Daniels turned toward the door, scanning the dimly lit street. A black car idled across the road, its engine humming softly. The moment their eyes landed on it, the headlights flicked on, and it sped off into the night. Whoever had taken what was inside that safe, they were still out there. Daniels didn't waste a second. He bolted out the door, radio in hand, calling for units to track the fleeing car. But deep down, he knew they wouldn't catch it. Not yet. This wasn't some random break-in. Someone had planned this, and they were always one step ahead. Back inside, Chief Warren hadn't moved. His expression was unreadable, but Daniels could feel the tension radiating off him. Then, without warning, Warren turned to the thief. "You're going to tell me exactly what you were looking for," he said, his voice eerily calm. The man swallowed hard. "I don't know," he admitted. "I was just paid to break in, grab whatever was inside, and drop it off. No names, no questions." Daniels frowned. A hired thief. That meant someone out there knew exactly what had been in that safe, and if they were willing to go this far to get it, They weren't done yet. Daniels barely had time to process the thief's words before his radio crackled again. "We found the car, abandoned in an alley, doors wide open. No sign of the driver." His stomach tightened. Whoever was behind, this was covering their tracks fast. Chief Warren let out a slow breath, his patience running thin. He turned back to the thief. "Who hired you?" The man hesitated, then finally muttered, "I don't know his real name. Just went by Kane." The moment that name left his lips, Warren stiffened. Daniels noticed it, just for a second, a flash of something in the chief's eyes. Recognition. Fear. Before he could ask, Warren pulled out his phone and walked away, speaking in hushed tones. Daniels turned back to the thief. "Who's Kane?" The thief shook his head. "All I know is he wanted something out of that safe." Then he paused, his voice dropping. "And if it's gone, we're all in trouble." Daniels felt a knot in his stomach. The way Chief Warren reacted to that name, it meant something. But before he could press for answers, Warren returned, his face unreadable. "This case is closed," he said firmly. "Take him in for the break-in, but nothing more." Daniels hesitated. "Chief, if this Kane—" "It's done," Warren cut him off. "Drop it." The thief looked just as confused as Daniels, but there was no arguing. As they loaded him into the squad car, Daniels glanced back at the office, the empty safe, the unanswered questions. Someone had planned this carefully, and Warren knew more than he was letting on. As the police cars pulled away, Daniels took one last look at the darkened street. Whatever had been inside that safe was gone, and whoever took it wasn't finished. This wasn't over, it was just beginning.